Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited because this is a new year of 2019 content and our first backer requested content. On the line, I have Brad Brooks. Say hello, Brad.
Hey everybody.
So, Brad is a designer, designed Letter Tycoon as well as Rise of Tribes, and is part of League of Gamemakers. Welcome,
Yep.
welcome on.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So to kick things off, pretty standard. I like to get a feel for sort of how you rolled into being a designer. Like, what was, probably between like when you put your first pencil down and got to and got to Letter Tycoon. So not specifically Letter Tycoon, but just becoming a designer.
Sure. So I think there's probably been games in my life since I was born. My my dad had game designs that he did before I was born. I don't think he knew like this was decades ago, and I don't think there was a way to do much of anything with them. But I can remember growing up with him having cardboard things and stuff about road rallies. And I think there was a bullfighting game and there was, you know,
So we should
uh,
stop here for a moment, just a quick brief moment. You are the son of a game designer. This is a
yeah,
lineage of game designering.
yep,
Um, that's pretty awesome in and of itself. Um,
yeah, yeah.
okay, so
He's always been like pushing. I can remember at one point he was fighting with uh, it was a mountain climbing game that had a 3D paper mache mountain that he was trying to teach himself um, basic electrical stuff so that he could put this sort of rotating magnet thing on the inside to make it so that if you used metal mountain climbers at the side, you could change it. Kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with the game King Oil. It's an
I've
old
heard of
game.
it, but I've never played it.
Game had three rotating plates that had holes in various parts that you could sort of randomly set up at the beginning and sink an oil derrick in, and then depending on where those holes lined up, determined how far that thing would go down, and that would be how easy that well was to drill. Well, he kind of took that idea, tried to make it 3 dimensional, so that you could randomly set up this mountain, um, and your climber would either stick or not stick at certain
Oh,
points.
did this
It
game get
was
made?
no, this was the 70s, and like it was super ambitious, but it was a bit beyond I think what you could really pull off at the time.
I don't
But that
know.
was
Sounds like
the
a
atmosphere that I
Kickstarter in
grew
the
up in.
making. And so
Yeah.
I'm super curious. So with that, was it just osmosis being around it, talking about it, or were there times where he sort of sat down with you and gave you structure and was like, "Here's how we talk about mechanics and theme and blah
I, like didn't even know any of that language back then.
blah."
I mean, there was nobody knew of anyone else that was doing that kind of thing. Nobody had any contacts. There was obviously no internet or anything. So it was just, I, I think in his mind, it was, I've seen games, somebody makes those, I've got an idea, I'm going to try and make one of those.
Okay, and so time passes. You're getting a little older. When did it go from your dad's stuff to you, starting to make your own games?
So I think I went through, uh, games kind of took a bit backseat when computer games came along. Uh, I did the inverse of what most people did. I don't think I played much of any board games through college, um, and I think I came back to them with more of a vengeance, sort of in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And I think probably I stumbled upon a copy of Carcassonne and thought that was wow, that was really elegant and interesting, and started like tinkering. But I think it was several years before I had something that I wanted to put in front of people. And I remember I was working at Disney at the time, and I had a game that I put together. It started out as my dad's idea, and I guess I had played enough games at that point that I was like, oh no, games must go in this direction. and I took a hand at it, and it was called Roads of Rome,
Okay.
uh, and it turned out to be pretty much an amalgamation of every Euro cliche that you could put together.
The
Yeah,
biggest, baddest Euro game ever.
yeah, and it literally to the point that it came in a box, this big with, colored beads and just all
There's 10
sorts of
people
stuff.
that want that game. Come on, man.
Maybe it'll come back. I don't know.
So just to ask a quick question, and maybe I knew this, but I didn't realize you worked at, man, so many people have worked at Disney at one point or another. Where did you work at Disney? What were you doing at Disney?
Animation. So I worked at Disney Animation for 15 years.
Awesome. Was that, I mean, because I met you through Peter Vaughn, and Peter Vaughn was working at Disney as well. Did you guys actually overlap at Disney?
Yep. Yeah, we were in the same little gaming group there.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, I don't know if you know the story, but while at Disney, when I was working on Disney Hidden Worlds, we went down to, I can't remember the name of the studio, but the studio he was in, it wasn't the animation studio. It was the one they were working on, Planes 2 or whatever the project was. I forget the name of
Yeah.
that
Toon
group,
Studio
Toon
or
Studio, whatever it was called.
yeah.
Um, and I was doing this roadshow around Disney to like get buy-in and approval because we were world building with different, Disney Hidden Worlds was like hit every IP. Anyway, and like he was in some meeting as one of the people giving feedback and perspective, and like, whatever, 3 or 4 years later when I met him in person, it was sort of like, you look familiar, man. Like, um, but anyway, okay, so but Roads of Rome, okay, but so big huge Euro game. So then, that presumably sort of peters out or doesn't get, um, the kind of traction it needed. And then how did you transition to like a word game? Like that's like a big shift.
So I think, I just kept taking swings at things. I had lots of other things that were games. I mean, they functioned. Nobody was begging to play them again. Um, but I was driving, listening to a podcast as I did, as I still do, and somebody was reviewing a word game, and I thought, well, that's silly. I wouldn't do it this way. I'd do it like this, and then realized that I had like an idea for a word game, and prototyped it up pretty quickly. Um, and at that time, Peter was doing like playtesting sessions in his apartment. Had some people over, and I brought it over and put it out there. And actually, that's not true. I had my wife play it first, and my
Smart
wife
move.
actually liked it, which meant there had to be something there because she's not a gamer and doesn't,
Right, right.
just kind
And
of looks at things and goes, "Oh, that's nice."
and so at that point, I'm just putting my timelines together. So at that point, had he done What the Food and launched on Kickstarter, or was this where in the initial? What was the name of that company?
Squirmy Beast.
Stormy Beach. Yeah. At what point was that intersection?
So that was just after he had released What the Food. Yeah. So he was trying to. I think he was looking at what he was going to do next, trying to figure that out. And yeah, we had this playtesting session, and for the first time ever, I put a game out, and people said, "Well, I want to play that again."
Yeah.
And so
And
I thought,
how
okay.
how far? Because this is something that I always find interesting with different designers and different process. But like that version you played at that everyone wanted to play again at Peters, like how far would you say like graphic design and art aside, but like just that core game, is that Letter Tycoon that people have like loved today, or was that like some early version that ended up getting tweaked and refined 3 times over that then became the final?
I think it's probably 75 to 80% of, yeah, maybe 75% of the game. I think the letter, the so the deck of letters, the letter distribution is the same that it was from the beginning. Sort of the the analytics, the
The
math that I did.
the scramble numbers, right?
Yeah, the
Scrabble.
manipulation of that and word frequency charts that I could find on Wikipedia, that all was good from the beginning. Um, in Letter Tycoon, there's you can buy patents, and some of the patents for the less used letters have powers on them. That's what changed a whole lot. I was over ambitious at first with having powers like extra stuff if you form a palindrome and crazy things that turns out in real life nobody's going to do. So the lessons of dialing those features back was what took another year or so.
And it's a little off sort of design mechanics per se, but one of the things that I think is interesting and worth discussing to the extent you're comfortable is, you know, designers come through the industry, they have different games, and sort of take different sort of partnerships, right? And so and you have, I mean, both Letter Tycoon and Rise of Tribes are bona fide hits, um, and your path really aligned with Peter's, right? So, clearly you knew each other, but so the and I'm sorry, I remember Peter told me this story at one point, but so what was the trend? Because basically it turns into this breaking games project before or after he transitions to breaking games. Like there's some like his trajectory and you're like attached to it, and then that's Letter Tycoon and then turns into Rise of Tribes as well. Can you, from your vantage point, what was that story?
Yeah, so um, coming out of that night with playtesting it, a couple of people talked to Peter afterwards and said, like, hey, I really liked that letter game. So he came to me and said, okay, well, do you want to make this game? We could make it underscore beast. And I said, sure, I think that'd be great. So we were planning towards that, and we were trying to do the, really small company, individual kind of production version of it. It would be a Kickstarter. And it was we were seeing that we were gonna have some problems with traction. A word game probably wasn't going to make a huge splash on Kickstarter. Um, so we were trying to figure that all out. We were at BGCon that year, and he came me over, introduced him to his printer, the person who printed What the Food, and that was Sherry. And
Via ad
Sherry,
metric.
yeah. Um, and so Sherry looked at the game and she was like, "I want to print that game, or I want to publish that
It's
game."
like we're talking to you about
And
printing it. What do you mean?
yeah, yeah, she's like, "No, I want to publish that game." And so we made a deal where basically it was, Squirmy Beasts and what became Breaking Games partnering together to publish it. And then for Peter, over time, that morphed to him just, pretty much moving full time in with Breaking Games. And
And
then they
so,
ended up doing Rise of Tribes.
let's move to, so I mean, again, Letter Tycoon has been huge success. I'm pretty sure you can find it at Target and big, big uh, books, brick and mortar stores, and has, is a ton of fun. I Before we go on to the next one, I do believe it is the case you guys have a expansion in the works, or
Yep.
what's going on? What's next for Letter Tycoon before we walk away from it?
Yeah, we do have, we've got an expansion, a Captains of Industry expansion, where we're introducing a few ways of changing up the gameplay. There are tycoons, skyscrapers, and regulations that you can add in the game. So
All cards,
all cards.
still cards.
Well, cards with some extra standy pieces and stuff.
Oh,
But so the way that tycoons work is you pick some of them to play randomly to the game, and they'll introduce some new rules to the game. Things like being able to pay to switch a vowel on your turn, or extra points at the end if the patents that you bought during the game, you can form a word out of them at the end. Um,
that's cool.
then, yeah, so give you a little bit of something else to focus on. Skyscrapers are in-game goals. So if on your turn you're able to form a word with three different vowels in it, you can claim one of the skyscrapers. But if anybody else does it after you, then they can take it away from you, and whoever ends up with it at the end gets some extra points.
Oh, that's sort of the longest road approach to word building. That's pretty interesting.
Exactly. And then the last thing is regulations, which is how you can get back at your mother-in-law who does the Times crossword puzzle every Sunday or something. It's basically putting a handicap on another player.
You
Um,
can't spell four-letter words.
it, yeah, so there's things like vowels cost you extra, or
Cool.
you're only allowed to use one letter out of the common pool, that kind of thing.
So, expansions come in all different flavors. It sounds like this one um, is mostly giving other objectives and abilities to players through play. From a playtime perspective, does it still end up being about the same time length of game, or is it turning into a little bit more of a meaty
Yeah,
experience?
it doesn't really add anything to the length of time. It's a little bit to wrap your head around in the beginning as to how it's going to change things up. But other than that, it should be the same play experience.
It's really, yeah. So it's adding some meteor game not that meaty, but like meteor game
Yeah.
mechanics
Yep.
to the experience. That's interesting. We did that, it wasn't an expansion, it was a standalone game, but one of the interesting things with Herbaceous and Herbaceous Sprouts is taking something that was amazingly simple and then building in other dynamics and mechanics to it and getting that balance between the two experiences to make them feel like they're standalone and unique. Okay, so that was Letter Tycoon. Well,
Yep.
so is this a Kickstarter? I mean, you don't need to do Kickstarter. Is it straight to retail, presumably?
That is the yeah. We're in final development. We're going to be sending it to some testers, some Letter Tycoon enthusiasts to get some sort of final feedback on it, and then hopefully we'll be seeing it later this year.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, we will watch for that. So then my next question is: you've done Letter Tycoon, which um, is you're like, I can do a better card game. They're pretty straightforward type of game, right? With really spectacular, subtle, refined art. Like the execution. I mean, we're not really talking about the product design, but boy, that product design, whoever ran that or whoever the artist was in product, if that was Peter. I don't remember the story, but that
Mackenzie Schubert, yeah.
it was. Oh, it's Mackenzie Schubert. I've worked with Mackenzie. Dude's awesome.
Yeah.
That's no surprise. Um, anyone wants like a absolutely stellar, interesting, unique art, Mackenzie Schubert, reach out to him. He's probably busy for days, but years. Okay, cool. Well, that answers that question pretty quickly.
Yep.
He did Penny Press and a whole bunch. He did all the backs for the Siblings Trouble. For those who are curious, how I work.
Okay.
The fronts
Yeah.
were from other artists, but all those like the super amazing backs, and the fronts were good too. But anyway, he's super cool. He's part of the like he was he was a moon surrounding the Cards Against Humanity um, tabletop death match like universe planet thing. Okay, so man, I haven't heard somebody say that guy's full name in a while. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Okay, but so you go from that type of game, and then you're like, it was it like, hey, that Roads to Rome game. How can I make one that's palatable? Like, how did you move from that to the like hex based, area control? Um, I mean, Rise of Tribes. Like, did it start with your really interesting dice math mechanic, or like, how did you get to that's a meteor hundreds of component game?
Yeah. So it definitely started with a dice mechanic. I remember again. I think I was probably commuting to work and thinking about um, I don't know what I was listening to, but it got me thinking about dice mechanics and how um, trying to avoid a Yahtzee sort of scenario where you're rolling dice and it only matters to you and nobody else cares, and trying to think of how you could have dice that mattered, what you rolled mattered to the next person. And so that idea of putting them into a queue, and the dice that you rolled became part of the result for the next player. Um, and then that naturally morphed into there's 4 different actions. Each of them has their own little dice cube, and then what the results were of those dice determines what the power of that action is.
Right. And
And
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and that the theme actually came later, because I think the first theme that I was thinking of was that the players were different corporations sending robots to terraform a planet, and the
Hey,
four
hey,
different
if that planet
actions.
was Mars, you might have been ahead of the game from a
I
time
could have been,
perspective.
yeah, yeah, I
Um,
could have scooped everybody, right?
yeah. Uh, and well, the art in Rise of Tribes is spectacular too. Totally different type of spectacular than Letter Tycoon, right? Those are like different spectrums.
Yep, yep.
But it was the case at that time that it included the area control and the unit placement, or was there a version of it where it was just a totally different game underneath that mechanic?
No, it was 4 actions, and there was it kind of mapped to a 4x kind of thing, pretty closely. Although actually, let me take that back. There were 5 actions to start with, because in the first version of it, combat was its own action,
I see. I see.
and that didn't turn out to work well.
People like to fight.
Yeah,
Uh, well, you have pretty easy combat resolution in that game, but I just you sort of explained it well, but just because I think it's such a awesome mechanic, um, on these action slots, you're that dice mechanic you're describing just for the audience is there's 3 dice in a slot, right? And
yep,
when there's 3 there, you add 1, making those new 3. So 1 plus the 2 that didn't get pushed off, and based on the quality of those dice, you get a quality of result. And so if
yep,
you put a high quality die in, you're going to get a high quality result, but that means that the next person can get a high quality or even a higher quality if they have another really I'm sort of abstracting it, but like it is a really interesting and engaging way. I remember very keenly I played that game for the first time early on at San Jose Protospiel with Peter. Was probably the I probably played with
yep,
it was Peter because we like got into debate, and early on the way you did the math on the value of the dice was pips, right? And so
yep.
you'd be looking at it and you'd be like, well, there's a 1 plus 3 plus 5, and then like if I add 1, I'm going to be adding a 4, and I would be subtracting this, and like the mechanic was awesome, but I just was like, I just don't want to be doing this math, man. Like every time I look at the 4 slots, I have to like add up pips.
Yep.
And I don't know if it was that feedback or you guys just independently, but got to the point where you moved to this like with star and moon
Yeah, there's a
solution,
moon and a sun, yeah, and a
a
blank.
moon and
Yep.
star, and so that it became way easier to be like high, medium, low ads. Oh, there's 2 highs out there. Okay, cool. Here's a third. Um, and it also brought this really vibrant graphic look where I'm not you're looking at these cool these unique dice with those symbols on them as opposed to pips, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Um,
It was interesting because like you said, the first thing it was pips, and you would have to add them up. And I think in the one thing I've learned from both games is this doesn't sound quite right, but I like overestimate what people are willing to do. Um,
well, when you're
so,
as smart as you are, it's hard not to.
yeah, I don't think it's that. I think it's just I'm obviously designing games to possibly my strengths, and then like
Yeah.
I have to take into account that other people, um, other people are going to be better at some things, and find other things they're not worse at them. They just might not find them as enjoyable. So yeah, that I mean, I've grown up with dice. To me, 5 pips on a die is 5. I don't have to process that and count them or anything like that. It's just a 5, right? Um, and so originally setting it up so that you had to add all of those together, but you're also making decisions across 4 or 5 actions, and trying like, well, if I put it there, it's going to be that, and if I put it there, it's going to be that, and okay, it's a 3, but there's a 12 in there, and yeah, it was madness. And the first attempt at fixing it up, where I thought, oh, this is brilliant, I've got it nailed, is getting dice that just had the numbers on them already. Yeah, that solves everything, right? We'll just put the numbers on there, and everybody will be able to add up the numbers. And like, yeah, no, that didn't fix it. And we went for quite a while with still having numbers on it until I sat down and worked out like I think what I was first attempting to do is, what if I just reduced the dice to one, two, and three, and there were
Yeah.
just two copies of them, right? And how would that change the, the standard, bell curve of what the, results are? How is that going to flatten that out? And what does it mean? And when I figured that out and said, oh, I can still make that work, and then had the light bulb moment of, well, if I've only got three numbers, do they have to be numbers? What if I make them symbols?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that from there it just was so much easier.
Yeah, yeah. And little game design moment for people who are newer to making games. Like if you haven't done it, sit down and really understand like what the difference between 3D4, 2D6, and 1D12 is. Like what does it mean to have those different dice in a game with rolling? Like what is the impact? And actually put it on a graph, chart it out, make that bell curve. Like that kind of understanding probability and distribution is super critical, whether it's cards or dice. So just to get to like the game designer 101, like just sit down and in your head be like, do I know the difference between those, or is those are those all the same? Because the answer is they're not all the same, right?
Yep,
And they have a huge impact. And if you didn't grow up on D&D, you're not gonna like if it wasn't the difference between the broadsword and the
exactly.
halberd, like you're not gonna know that math as like inertly as somebody who like grew up with those being critical decisions on why you wanted the dagger versus, but it really is important to understand those concepts. Um,
Absolutely.
Also, for a brief notice, a moment, I noticed a head. Is that your son sitting with you, or is that
Oh, yeah, that's my son Tristan, my
looks
younger
like
son.
video games? Hello.
Yeah.
He'll come back after college. Don't worry about
He plays once in a while.
it. Okay, so the game came together. You worked with Peter and Breaking Games. It was Breaking Games' first Kickstarter, I believe. I may be mistaken. Maybe
Yep.
they did, or did they do what's that like? Sparkle Kitty Nights, was that before it or after?
Art
Or
Kitty Nights was after it. Yeah.
Sparkle Kitty?
Um,
Either way, it was the first
there was
monster
right
Kickstarter. Like I don't, was it? I can't remember if it was like 400,000 or like it broke a
three
million.
386, I think,
Yeah.
was what we
Okay.
ended up
So
with.
I got it. I got an okay memory. It was 386.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And so like that was a monster, right? And like talk about a game that got upgraded and upgraded and upgraded and upgraded and upgraded. Um, and so
Yeah,
it.
that's.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's a whole, the amount of work that Peter and Chris Strain put into uh, coming up with art just for the Kickstarter, to show, like, they did this whole graphic of this path that the meeple could walk down through the stretch goals,
Yeah,
and
gamify it, right?
yeah, gamified it completely, and the amount of effort, and because it went better than we were projecting, that means we hit stretch goals faster, and like there was a scramble to, like, quick, we got to get this art out, and we got to do this, and we got to, figure out something to, stick in over here, and yeah, you just got to
And
be prepared for any eventuality.
yeah, okay. And so and that was a big game release. That hit store shelves last year, right? Of course it did.
Right.
We're like on
Yeah.
January 10th,
Yeah.
or whatever, 12th. So not that that's when this video is getting posted, but that's okay. Um, so one question I have for you, having had two big market successes, one being hyper casual or casual, the other being strategy, pretty family weight, but strategy. Um, what has been the difference with those audiences, like as a designer, right? As somebody who hears some people have played your game, like can you really feel that they're different people? Like how would you describe your fans and players of those designs?
Yeah, I think there certainly is crossover. There's plenty of Omni gamers out there who like to play different games. Um, but yeah, from like a marketing perspective, I don't think I was like aiming to fulfill the desires from my established base or anything like that. I think there are people who like word games. There are people who tolerate word games, and then there are a large amount of people who never want to go near a word game. They've had some kind of traumatic childhood experience with Scrabble, and I'm like done with that, right? Um, and on the other hand, the Rise of Tribes is a good family weight civilization building game, but it's flexible in that it can be the get all your friends around and stomp on each other game, or it can be the Care Bear. We're each going to build our own civilization and not make anybody feel too pounded upon, because it's costly. I mean, one of the mechanics in the game is when you attack somebody, you lose as much as they do. So it isn't. Um, it isn't a game where you just mindlessly stomp on each
Right.
other and expect to win.
It isn't a small world where it's just sort of like meant to be a game where you're just rolling through like so many races, so many people that like you're just like you ran out of people, get another
Yeah, like,
person
whatever.
quicker. Which that's a great mechanic in that game. But and so wouldn't you know it, if I'm not mistaken, Rise of Tribes is also has an expansion underway.
It does. Yeah, we're in development on an expansion called Beasts and Bronze.
All right.
So it's
Does
a
it have?
two-part expansion.
Okay, go ahead.
It has it's going to have a Beasts event deck. There's an event deck in the game. This is going to introduce a new event deck that can be played separately or mixed in, that is all beast oriented, and we'll have some additional beast components to come along with it.
Of course.
And then the other side of it is Bronze, which is a different victory path. So normally in the game, it's a race to 15 points. Bronze is going to give you the opportunity to advance your civilization to the Bronze Age and win the game that way. And it gives people a little more incentive to play a village strategy
Nice.
and try and complete things that way.
And now I gotta know, for beasts, are you gonna like sort of stay pseudo prehistoric, like, or are you like we're gonna bring in the Jurassic beasts and like whatever?
I'm holding the line. Yeah.
Because the conversation had to come up, man, when you like
There's yeah, people want, I'm going to come in with velociraptors and,
and you're
yeah,
like no we're not.
yeah.
uh, cool. Well, when you said Bronze Age, I was like, okay, probably not. Awesome. And so, okay, and so those are, and is that going to Kickstarter or is that straight to retail?
Um,
Or you don't have to answer if
Not
you don't know.
sure.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's like one hand's like, hey, there's all this opportunity, and then the other hand is like, hey, there's all this work. um,
Yeah, it
so
doesn't come for free.
no, it doesn't, man. It does not come for free. Okay, and so I mean, those are huge projects in and of themselves. Undoubtedly going to be successful, which is a great place to be. Are you, still working on, I mean, I'm sure you are, but like, how much with all that product work do you find time to still push new designs, and do you have other things in the hopper, or are you sort of, two hit lines is enough to keep you busy type of?
I'm working, I'm trying to take the dice mechanic in another direction. I've got a design I'm working on related to that. Um, I've had, we started this talking about my dad. I've had a design that he and I have pushed back and forth along with Peter. Uh, I think we've redesigned it completely, like 9 times, pushing it back and forth. That's always been kind of in the background. Um, and I think probably weekly I come up with some new idea that I've at least got to put something down on paper, or the voices won't stop in my head, and
Cool.
just got to clear that out. So yeah, I've got more things that I'd like to work on than I've got time to work on. Um,
I forgot to ask, are you at this stage full-time design, or are you also have a full-time job as well?
Now I've got a full time job, and I live in LA, but I'm out in the suburbs, but my job's actually in downtown LA, so I've got a healthy commute every day.
Oof. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can imagine.
so lots of thinking time, lots of time to think about stuff, not so much time as much as I'd like to execute on it.
Yeah, I mean that's always one of the challenges, right? It's just making it all work and fit. Um, awesome, awesome. Well, and with those new designs, are you? I mean, I mean, and correct me if I'm mistaken, that you're still sort of in that traditional designer role where you're not actually working for Breaking Games explicitly. You just have designs that they've picked up. So,
Yep.
presumably they're always going to look at something. If you're like, I got a design, they're gonna be like, well, we're gonna take a look. But do you do
I think I
the
can get a meeting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Are you, but at the same time, at cons and stuff, do you find yourself pitching and running around and doing that song and dance, or have you largely avoided that at this point?
Yeah. I don't think I have pitched in the past. I haven't pitched anything in the last to someone else in the last couple of years.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Well, it's nice not to have to do that. That saves some time in and of itself.
It is effort just to get that together and just do your research and know who you should be pitching to.
Oh yeah, it's time. It takes time and follow up
Yep.
and so okay. And so we're it's beginning of January we established. As you look into not talking about your own work, but just as you look into games coming down the pipe and the industry. I mean, what excites you about 2019?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's just so many things coming out that there's always something new and interesting, and you know, there's still the ability for something to come along and make people stand up and go, "Oh, what's that about?" I mean, two games coming out last year that were uh, unique per version. The whole Keyforge and what was it, Discover.
I know Keyforge. I'm not sure which.
Uh, the other FFG one where it was a board
Oh,
game and it was a unique combination of components in each
sure, sure.
package.
Well, and
Uh,
Netflix is getting on the bandwagon too. I mean, they're just like, we're gonna go do the Keyforge thing.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think it's you think like, oh, it's just going to be more games of retreading the same thing, and people still have the ability to surprise you and come up with something
Yeah,
interesting and always in a different direction.
yeah, no, it's super awesome. I agree. I agree. Um, well, we've gone well over the half hour mark. Thank you so much for being on. Uh,
Absolutely.
super fan of your game, so keep making them, and I look forward to these expansions. I'm very curious to how they play out in the games. Um, but thanks so much for being on, and thanks everyone
Thanks for
for
having
watching.
me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.